Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am very honored to open the last panel of Central European Energy Congress. The title of this panel is V4 Gas Markets, Integration and Security of Supply. I would like to underline the fact that there is V4 gas markets, not V4 gas market, because V4 gas market hasn't existed so far. V4 gas market was fragmented into national markets. As a chair of the panel, allow me to address a few introductory remarks. Natural gas supplies to V4 countries represents amount of 41 BCM a year. As you can see, the Poland and Czech Republic is more coal-oriented. The Hungary and Slovakia is more gas-oriented, according to the share of natural gas in energy mix of these countries. 41 BCM is quite a proper market, but when we take into consideration also adjacent countries, Ukraine, Baltic states, Romania, Austria, it could be established the market with 130 BCM a year, and it could be a big challenge for the future. Natural gas market of V4 countries are characterized by very similar problems: dominance of Russian supplies, decreasing demand for natural gas, limited interconnections, absence of substantive interconnector direction north-south, overwhelming east-west flows, and limited and poor market liquidity. What we will be speaking about in this panel is the security of supply issues, north-south gas corridor. In the framework of this gas corridor will be built interconnector between Czech and Poland, between Slovakia and Poland, and obviously a Slovak-Hungarian gas interconnector. Then we have to devote our ideas, our attention to the Russian-Ukrainian crisis, where we will find 82 BCM amount of gas if the Russian supplies across the Ukraine will be cut off. But last but not least is the principles of EU gas market. It's right that we were not successful to establish the common European energy market so far, but it remains our goal for the future, and that was the reason I tried to prepare fundamental principles of EU gas market. I don't want to restrain you about these details. If someone interested in this issue, my presentation will be at disposal for you. But what I would like to underline is the key steps towards the gas target model and international gas market. It means application of network codes related to congestion management, capacity allocation, gas balancing, interoperability, and gas tariff structure. The majority of these measures will be implemented, will be realized by transmission system operators. And that's the reason that we meet in this panel representative of transmission system operators of V4 countries and Central Europe, allow me to introduce my distinguished panelists. Firstly, Tomáš Mareček, who is chairman of the board of directors of joint stock company Eustring, the Slovak TSO. Then Yuri Vitrenko, managing director from Naftogaz of Ukraine. The Naftogaz subsidiary or daughter's company is Ukrtransgaz, which is Ukrainian transmission system operator. Then Andreas Rau, managing director Net4Gas from Czech Republic. And then Adam Marzecky, manager from gas system, transmission system operator from Poland. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Mareček. Tomáš, the floor is yours.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tomáš Mareček. I'm chairman of the board of Eustring. At the very beginning, maybe I should correct Mr. Klepáč slightly, because as you all know, this is V4 guest conference. But after yesterday's very hard discussions during gas session, during dinner gas session on topic South Stream, the Hungarian colleague refused to participate in this panel. So you can see, at least for the gas sector, you can see the revised V4 setup, which is less Hungary plus Ukraine, but hopefully only for today. I love looking at things from different perspectives that are most people used to, from unconventional perspectives, because many times it leads to not so much obvious conclusions. And sometimes it leads to discovery of solutions which you wouldn't expect at all. And I would like to share some of these insights during my presentation. If you look at my first slide, this shows simple thing. When we at Eustring fly to Gazprom, even if Gazprom is seated officially in St. Petersburg, all negotiations with Gazprom we have are held in Moscow, surprisingly. So we usually go to Vienna and then fly directly from Vienna to Moscow. If you look at this map, it seems that the airlines which are going from Vienna to Moscow are trying to bypass Ukraine, as is the case with many gas pipelines. For security reasons, this is the flight path of Austrian Airlines, but the second operator on this route is Aeroflot, and Aeroflot uses pretty much the same route. But the logic of this curve, please note that this is not a straight line, this is a curve, is because it is pictured on a map. And as we all know, the globe or Earth is round. So if you switch to different perspective, which is on the next slide, you can see that if you look from the space, then the route is direct. And it is only that looking at the map is sometimes bit confusing. So first thing that we have to look at the things very properly in order to see the reality as it is. So first conclusions, that globe projections are much more precise or accurate than when we are looking only at the maps. When we consider routes from east to west or from west to east, the northern routes appear shorter or longer actually than they are in reality, and the southern routes appear shorter, and in reality they are in fact longer. And this applies both to pipelines and to airlines. And because airlines operate in fierce competition, they cannot afford to choose any other solution than the best one, which is obviously not the case when building pipelines. This is a very important picture which shows the highways for the Russian gas to Europe. You can see 3 existing gas corridors. The oldest and by far the largest and most important one is the yellow one, which crosses Ukraine. Then it's split into 2 branches. One goes to the south, Moldova, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece to Turkey. And the western route goes through Slovakia to Czech Republic and Germany, and through Austria to Italy. The overall capacity of this system is more than 140 BCM. Second system is Yamal, which crosses Belarus and Poland and transport gas to Germany with capacity approximately 33 or 34 BCM. And the last one is Nord Stream with capacity of 55. Russia last year supplied Europe plus Turkey with 161 billion cubic meters of gas, which is approximately 1/3 of European consumption. And if you look at the utilizations of these 3 corridors, then you can see, with a small exception of direct pipelines to Finland and Turkey, that for the Ukrainian transit corridor, they use it for transporting like 90 billion cubic meters. But in Nord Stream, due to the OPAL issues and NEL issues, Nord Stream was utilized at less than 50%, which means that in case that South Stream is built with total capacity of 63 BCM, and Gazprom would utilize fully Nord Stream and fully Yamal and fully South Stream, they can comfortably bypass totally Ukrainian system. And not only Ukrainian system, but also Slovak system, system in Moldova, and system in Romania. And these assets, with the combined capacity of 140 BCM, would be traded off for a system which is like 60% smaller, because you would kill 140 BCM capacity, existing capacity, which is already there, and you would spend enormous amounts of money to build new capacity, which is only 63 BCM. So this is the risk for, first risk for, and the major one for Ukraine, because if this is the case, then the Ukrainian transit system would be economically and afterwards physically totally ruined. And because Ukraine depends on it very much, it will be completely hostile action against Ukraine, I mean supporting South Stream. Now again, different perspective. This is similar map, but extended to Russia. I call it field to hub, which means that this shows the overall routes from the gas fields in Western Siberia and in Yamal Peninsula to the European gas hubs. The thickness of the pipelines represent their capacity, so the relative comparison of the capacity of these pipelines can be derived from it. If we start from the north, then you can see that Nord Stream pipeline, which is the newest one, is feeding from Bovanenkovo field, which is on Yamal Peninsula. Then the pipeline runs from Bonavenkovo to Uchta, then to Grazoviec, then to Vyborg, and then to Germany. It's 4,240 kilometers long. And what is important, it is under the 100% control of Gazprom. On the Russian territory, Gazprom is the sole owner of the pipelines. And on the Nord Stream, they control 51%, which means that they effectively control the whole pipe. Second route is Yamal route, which was built in 2000, I think, which is slightly shorter, I mean from field to the hub, slightly more than 4,000 kilometers. If you calculate it effectively, then Gazprom controls 83% of this pipeline. They control 100% till the Russian-Belarus border. For the last 2 years, they control 100% of the Belarus transit system, Beltransgas, and they are having minority stake in Yamal, Poland. I think it's like 48%, and long-term booking. So again, this route, so to say, under control of Gazprom. Then you have Ukrainian route, which is the southern branch. So this is feeded not from Bovanenkovo, but from Urengoj and Jamburg gas fields, which are quite huge, but also quite depleted as of today. This route to the closest European hub, which is Baumgarten, which is 25 kilometers from this room, is 4,700 kilometers long, and the effective control, the proportion of Russian control, is only 63%. So my guess would be that what is the intention of trying to buy or rent Ukrainian gas transmission system, or to set up JV with Ukraine, or to set up JV with Ukraine and European Union, and so on, to increase this percentage. And the proposed solution is potentially South Stream, which is like 60% longer than all other existing routes. It is close to 7,000 kilometers long, and if it is built, then it will be controlled by 100% by Gazprom, all the way up to the Baumgarten, which is pretty much in the heart of Europe. Another different perspective. The red line you can see is the proposed route for South Stream. This is not only that offshore section has to be built, and section in Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary, and 60 kilometers in Austria have to be built, but also close to 2,000 kilometers in Russian federations of brand new pipelines has to be laid down in order to South Stream to be able to supply the gas to Europe. So combined 3,700 kilometers. The orange line, which is on the north, is pretty much the same pipeline. It has the same length, and it goes also from the Russian Federation, actually exactly from the point where Nord Stream starts. If I remember it correctly, yesterday's dinner guest session, my Hungarian colleagues would definitely argue that the orange line provides diversification of gas routes to Lisbon. They will be, of course, right. But I was wondering whether they can persuade me that this pipeline is needed. I believe not. And I think this is exactly the same case as is the South Stream. So, next slide. That's completely different perspective, and I would say, from my perspective, slightly terrifying. This is what will happen if South Stream is built. Do you see the red circle in the Europe? I think Hungarian colleagues are right that South Stream would provide additional route, so effectively diversification of the routes. We all use this phrase when we talk about security of supply, that it is always better to have 2 or 3 options than one. Then if some of the V4 or European countries has some problem, that they can simply switch to another source. I think this is true, but the logic behind South Stream, when you look at this map, is that this is true mainly for Russians. That this provides diversification of the routes, but for Russia, in case there is some problem. And you can guess what all kinds of problems there can be to change the route. So I think the only thing that is missing in completing this circle is that Gazprom will buy Andreas Rau and Net4Gas, and the circle is complete. So, few conclusions regarding South Stream and the consequences for Central and East Europe and for Southeastern Europe. South Stream does provide diversification of transmission route. That's true. But the list of the problems is much longer. Firstly, it is non-compliant with the third energy package, which I will explain in a few minutes, is the critical moment. Second, it provides no diversification of gas sources. It provides no additional liquidity to Europe, which means no more competition, no more price convergence, and potentially selective pricing for the countries along the pipeline. It would cement the dominant position of existing supplier in Balkan countries, because even now they are 100% dependent on the Russian gas. But what is not so obvious, that underutilization, it will lead to underutilization of, as I already said, of existing assets, which are, if you look at the map, back, in the northeastern direction from South Stream route. As I said, Ukraine, Slovakia, Moldova, and Romania especially. But what is even more interesting that it poses significant threat of reducing the volume of the gas which can be traded in the region as well. Because simple facts are that if South Stream goes from Black Sea to Bulgaria, and you have corridor from Ukraine, Moldova, Romania to Turkey, it would effectively block the transit pipelines in the southern direction from South Stream, which means from in Bulgaria and down to Turkey and Greece. Because what we can expect that if it is built, it has 4 strings under the Black Sea, each 16 billion cubic meters capacity. And by the way, the route which goes through Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria down has capacity in Romania 30 billion cubic meters, and from Bulgaria to the south only 16, which is exactly the one pipeline. So what I would expect that if it is built, that one pipeline of the offshore section will be connected to this north-south corridor across Balkan countries, and it would fill the pipelines with this gas, which means Romanian pipelines will remain empty, and Bulgarian pipelines going to Greece and Turkey will be congested. That's first point. Second point, when the South Stream reaches Baumgarten with a capacity of 30 or 32 billion cubic meters, we will face pretty much the same problem. Because Baumgarten, you can read in newspapers that we have virtual trading points and that you are supplying gas to some country or region. But the fact is that the only way to transport gas is through pipelines. And when you go to Baumgarten, which is close to Slovak-Austrian border, from Baumgarten there are only 2 options to go further. One is TAC pipeline to Italy with capacity 40 BCM, and one is VAC capacity pipeline to Oberkappel to Germany with capacity like 8 or 10 billion cubic meters. So combined capacity of these pipelines is around 50 billion cubic meters. To Baumgarten, there are 3-4 pipelines from Slovakia with a capacity around 60 billion cubic meters. If you add South Stream, you will get to Baumgarten 90 billion cubic meters, but you have only 2 small pipelines running from Baumgarten. So what you will do with that gas? You cannot transport it anywhere. So the obvious solution is to physically reuse existing capacity from Slovakia, because the combined physical capacity, if they provide it on firm basis, cannot be provided both for South Stream and for Slovakia. And unofficially, we've been from Austrian side already informed that they are considering reducing the technical capacity from Slovakia by adjusting the metering stations, because they cannot take over all the volumes both from Gazprom and from Slovakia. This is pretty much the compliance with European energy legislation for me. The result probably would be instead of increasing liquidity in this region, reducing the liquidity in this region. And Hungary, Slovakia, and Ukraine will become the countries at the end of the pipe, so to say. So the volume of the gas can be reduced in order to provide this region with exactly the amount of the gas which is needed, whatever is the reason. So these are the some of problems of the South Stream. I think maybe I can mention two more, or again from different perspective, two more interesting insights. If you look at this map, you can see, and you can read in newspapers actually every day, that Gazprom is cutting supplies to Europe or reducing the supplies to Europe by 30, 40, 50%, depending on the country. Some journalists usually explain it as a punishment for reversing gas to Ukraine, which Gazprom doesn't like. So this is like kind of their reaction. They will reduce the liquidity in the region so that it is much harder to reverse the gas flow, because if there is no surplus liquidity, there is much more difficult to transport gas to Ukraine. But I think that maybe this is not the case at the end of the day. At least maybe this is not the only case. If you look at the map, you will, as I already mentioned, I think second or third biggest customer of Gazprom is Italy, consuming, I think, 30 billion cubic meters of Russian gas. It's transported via Ukraine, Slovakia, Austria, and the TAC pipeline. TAC pipeline in Austria cannot be reversed. So if it is the case that Russians are afraid of reverse flow or punishing someone for reverse flow, this would definitely doesn't make sense in case of Italy, firstly. Secondly, Italy is the 20% shareholder of South Stream Offshore, and he is pretty much needed partner for Russians. So it doesn't make sense to cut the supplies to Italy as well. And the fact is, if you look at the Snamrete, which is the operator in Italy, on his website, 2 days ago, the published data were that Snamrete nominated 88 million cubic meters of gas at Tarvisio Point from Austria to Italy. Because for those who are not specialists in gas business, it works that you have long-term contract. Under long-term contract, each day you nominate what amount of gas you want to purchase the next day. And then you have to reach, so to say, agreement with your supplier. And then when it is confirmed, it is allocated to you. So 2 days ago, at Austrian-Italian border, Italians nominated 88 million cubic meters per day, and what they received? 62. They were cut by 30%. They are partners of the Russians in South Stream, so Russians need them. There is no risk that some Italian gas could be even theoretically reversed to Ukraine. So maybe the so-called punishment for reverse is not the major case. Third point is that if you look at the physical flows across 3 existing routes, Nord Stream, Yamal, and Ukrainian and Slovakian route, for the last 2 months, they are pretty much stable. I've seen the chart for last 8 years, and there was no such period of such stable flows during September, October, and November in the last 10 years. So what could be, of course, theoretically, the cause of this? You cut your customers, which are your friends, your co-shareholders, and they cannot pose any threat to you by reversing gas to Ukraine. you are losing actually money, because for non-deliveries you have to pay penalties. So why would you do this? Unless you have to. So if you go back from Italy across Austria, Slovakia, Ukraine, someone can ask whether the problem is on the Ukrainian side. And we asked our colleagues on Transgas, and this is not the case. There is no problem. So then you go east, and east, and you end up in the Western Siberia fields. And one of the obvious and logical solutions is that Gazprom has some technical difficulties and has some major problem in their gas fields, which are feeding the southern pipelines. Because you don't see this problem on Nord Stream. And Nord Stream is fed from different field, from Bovanenkovo in Yaman Peninsula. So maybe we are blaming Gazprom, and it is not needed. Maybe it's not their decision to punish someone or cut someone. Maybe it's simple the physical problem that might be some failure in their gas fields. So they are not able to provide more gas to Europe, simply because they don't have the source. It can be one of the explanations. Of course, this is theory, but it can be, and it seems logical to me. Second remark, when we are looking at this map regarding South Stream, is that for South Stream to be built, I mean the offshore part, we know that it will cost probably something between 10 or 15 billion euros. These pipelines are built in a way that the shareholders provide 20% of the capital and the rest is borrowed from bank on long-term basis, which means that 80% should be borrowed from banks. If it costs 15 billion euros, the so-called equity contribution of shareholders will be 3 billion, and they need to raise 12 billion from banks. But there are two problems. One is that it's extremely expensive, much more expensive than when it is built, than when the pipes are built in Europe, probably for some reason. And secondly, that Gazprom, due to European legislation, cannot choose the tariff for gas transit according his will, because and these two facts, heavily overpriced investment and, so to say, regulated tariffs, gives you the fact that the payback period for the pipeline will be very long, because you invest heavily, you get only relatively small revenue. So in order to pay for the 15 billion, you have to wait many years, 15 to 20, first of all. Secondly, if you need 80% of that investment financed by the long-term loan from the banks, the banks will provide you under one condition. They need to see the cash. They need to see the cash flow. If the payback period is 15 years, I wouldn't lend you 12 billion euros, even if I have it. So what they need to see, I mean the financing institutions, secured cash flow of the South Stream for next 15 years. Next step, who can provide you with 15 years secured cash flow? If this is the pipeline which starts in Russia, gas is from Russia, only Russian company. No one else can book Gazprom or South Stream offshore capacity for 20 years without having gas on the Russian side. So the only customer who can provide South Stream with 20 years booking is Russia. And this is the major trick, because under the third energy package, there is no way you own the pipeline and have long-term booking for 20 years for the full capacity, unless you are provided with the exception. So this is the major problem, that the European Union is standing firmly that they will not provide Gazprom or the countries with the exemption. And without the exemption, it doesn't make economical sense. Even if it does some other sense, for political reasons, someone has to pay for it. But then there's the problem that this is not solely Gazprom pipe. There's also Eni, Italian company, and the French. And the Italian company 3 weeks ago announced that for their 20% stake, they will provide only 600 million euros, which is exactly 3 billion of equity.
Thomas,
so what they...
Thomas, it is extremely important, extremely interesting, but time is running rapidly.
Okay, thank you, and sorry. So the problem is that if South Stream doesn't get any financing, then the Eni will probably quit. If Eni quits, then it's a major problem for Russians. So you can read Google News and watch exactly at what time the Italians will quit the South Stream. And this will define the future of this project. So I will try to speed it up. Brief overview, because this is Security of Supply conference as well, of the gas balance of V4 countries. You can see that the overall annual consumption of these 4 countries is 41 BCM, with combined domestic production, which is mainly in Poland, around 9 BCM. So these 4 countries need 33 billion cubic meters of gas import. If you look at the existing infrastructure, both from east and from west, the only remaining thing we need is to build and commission the north-south interconnections, especially from Poland across, we prefer Slovakia, down to Hungary. Similar map for the South and East European countries shows that they consume 26 BCM, produce approximately half of it. So their overall import needs of the all Balkan countries, including Romania, which is a very important country, you will see in a few minutes, is 12 billion cubic meters. Just put it in perspective of the 63 billion cubic meters new pipeline, if you have countries that altogether consume 12 BCM. Here I tried to put some bullet points regarding what should be the common goals, or what are probably the common goals. We have to provide security of supply, diversification of gas routes, yes. Diversification of physical sources of the gas. We need flexibility during winter, because average consumption is for nothing if it is minus 20 degrees. We need maximally utilize existing infrastructure and not to spend money on new one if it is not needed. And what is important, we need to keep flexibility for the future. So we think and think and think, and we try to describe how in this region we can solve our common problem with our existing assets. And I think we have, of course, it is only one of scenarios, but I think it should be the preferred one. The solution which could provide physical alternative for providing all Balkan countries with 100% of their consumption. The same for covering 100% of their security of supply. additional utilization for most existing transit and gas storage assets, even providing Western shippers with possibility to supply gas from Western Europe to Balkan countries and even to Turkey. We believe that this solution could lead to the fact that South Stream is not built, and then Ukrainian system will be utilized in the future, which would greatly help the whole region. In the future, it could provide gas corridor for exporting Romanian gas from their new discoveries, or from, for example, Agri pipeline, which could cross the Black Sea and end up in Hungary. And they can via this solution export the gas to Western Europe. Of course, it can be used for importing gas to Europe from all other sources in the future, starting Caspian, Iran maybe, Iraq, Egypt, Israel, Cyprus. I think all these sources of the gas will end up in Turkey, which will inevitably become the gas hub. So the gas liquidity will be at the border between Turkey and Bulgaria. And the only question is how to get it to the European customers. It will be ready for TANAP expansion, and it will be in full compliance with EU energy legislation. If you look at, again, this existing map, these are the main transit pipelines in this region. So the obvious solution, which would provide us with all the previous points which I already mentioned, is this one. We call it, you can choose Eastring, E like European string, or East string. I think this was not still decided. Technical description, just to give you few facts, and this is, I think, one of the last slides, just for Mr. Klepacz. It could be the pipeline 1200 millimeters, 75 to 98 bars pressure level. It depends on the phase 1, phase 2. It will need no other compressor station. The capacity in the first stage for sending gas from west to east would be more than 12 billion cubic meters, which is the overall yearly consumption of the all Balkan countries, as you have already seen. It will be like 560 or 70 kilometers long, only in the territory of Romania. It could utilize approximately 80 kilometers of Ukrainian Soyuz pipeline, which is 1400 millimeters pipeline, which is now underutilized or not utilized at all. And as far as I know, our Ukrainian colleagues are still thinking that they could physically this pipeline turn around. So this perfectly suits this purpose. And it can be run by existing compressors in Velké Kapušany with relatively only small compression power needed. So no new investments on Slovak side, close to zero investments in Ukrainian territory, and the only thing that is needed is to build pipeline which is less than 600 kilometers long without any compressor station and connect it to the Romanian transit system at Ukrainian-Romania border. And the capex, or the investment for this pipeline, based on our estimations we have for Slovakia-Poland interconnector, is that it would cost, the whole story would cost 750 million euros. For example, the Serbian part of South Stream, which is 420 kilometers long, will cost 2.2 billion euros. So this would solve the problem in all Balkan countries, provide the flexibility for the future, exporting Romanian gas, exporting or importing Caspian gas to Europe with 1/3 of the money which are needed only in Serbia. So, last slide is devoted to our Hungarian colleagues. I call it Adam Smith versus John Nash dilemma. Adam Smith, the famous economist, in his book, which is called An Inquiry into the Nature and the Causes of the Wealth of Nations, which is one of the most famous books in economics theory, which was written 238 years ago, stated that in competition, individual ambition serves the common good, which means that by pursuing pure individual interests, we will find the optimal solution for the whole group, whole country, whole region, whole Europe. Less than 200 years later, American mathematician John Nash changed this, and his conclusion is that the best result for the group will come when everyone from the group is doing what is best for himself and the group at the same time. For this amendment, he was awarded Nobel Prize in 1994, and this has many, many practical applications. The obvious question is whether Bulgaria, Serbia, and especially Hungary will choose to stay in Middle Ages, or if they will follow the path which was supported by the Nobel Prize in Mathematics. And small remark, you see at the bottom, the foundations of the John Nash theory was laid by John von Neumann, famous mathematician who was born in Budapest, Hungary. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Thomas, for your long but perfect presentation. I believe that all of you obtained perfect overview what's going on. The next speaker will be Yuri Vitrenko, Managing Director from Naftogaz of Ukraine. Yuri promised me to give 5 or 10 minutes from your presentation to the Thomas.
In exchange for reverse.
Okay. The floor is yours, Yuri.
Thank you very much for a brilliant presentation from Thomas. And I would like to start where Thomas ended, with the prisoner's dilemma by Nash. And if you know this game theory and the prisoner's dilemma, it's important to have trust in other players' behavior, because if you think that somebody will fail, or in prisoner's dilemma basically confess or betray whatever, then expectations of certain actions of other people in this equation will outline your actions. And I would like to speak about a very practical and very important at the same time step we have to make that would be like an exit test for our trust, if we can trust each other in this Visegrad group. Or again, as Nash proven in this prisoner dilemma, we will have a much worse result that we would have if we unite. So I would like to speak about Ukrainian-Slovakian interconnector. What is the problem? The problem is the heritage contract between Eastring and Gazprom export. It's kind of a leftover from the gas supply contract from the Soviet Union times. This contract gives Gazprom export exclusive rights to control interconnector between Ukraine and Slovakia for 4 main pipelines. Uzhgorod-Veliki Kapushany of annual capacity of about 100 BCM. This contract is a clear violation of relevant Slovakian and European regulation. It also violates Energy Community Treaty signed between EU and Ukraine in particular. According to the regulation and this treaty, only Ukrainian TSO can be a counterparty of Eastring with regard to this interconnector. Gazprom may still book capacities with Eastring, ship gas in any direction, but it should have the same right as any other shipper, and therefore Gazprom should not be allowed to continue controlling the interconnector. There were attempts to provide some legal arguments why control over the Slovakian-Ukrainian interconnector by Gazprom does not violate the regulation and the treaty. The first argument was that it was not clear if Slovakian-Ukrainian interconnector was not subject to European Energy Community Treaty. This treaty provides for application of relevant European regulation, European acquis, to the contracting parties of the treaty. Technically, this led to necessity to transpose EU acquis to the treaty. For example, to replace EU member states with contracting parties. Accidentally or not, when definition of interconnector was transposed from EU acquis to EC Energy Community Treaty, interconnector between EU member states was replaced with interconnector between 2 contracting parties. It gave ground to some lawyers to question if Energy Community Treaty covers interconnectors between an EU member state, Slovakia in our example, and the contracting party, Ukraine. In order to answer to this question, Ministerial Council of the Energy Community had to issue an official clarification that Energy Community Treaty covers interconnectors between EU member states and contracting parties. The second argument was a so-called grandfathering issue. Some interested parties claimed that since the contract between Eastring and Gazprom was signed before the relevant EU regulation was adopted, it should not be subject to this regulation. This argument has no legal grounds because it is not how the relevant EU regulation, third energy package in particular, works. It covers not just new contracts, but also existing contracts which should be made compliant with the regulation. One can apply for an exemption from the third energy package, but it's not given automatically for existing contracts. Just to mention, neither Eastring nor Gazprom ever applied for such an exemption. There are no regulatory or technical barriers to remove control of Gazprom over Ukrainian-Slovakian interconnector. No new regulation is needed. What is needed is just to enforce current regulation. During the recent meeting of TSOs in Brussels, chaired by the European Commission, both Eastring and Ukrtransgaz confirmed that their successful direct relationship with regard to new Slovakian-Ukrainian interconnector, Vayany-Uzhgorod, prove that they can do perfectly well without Gazprom in the middle. Major Ukrainian gas companies, shippers, use this interconnector for reliable transmission of big volumes of gas. One may ask, Slovakia already helped Ukraine and built a new interconnector. Why Ukraine is still not happy? First, we would prefer to look at it as a mutually beneficial cooperation, not as one directional help. Eastring did a great job, thank you, Thomas, by investing, again, some money, maybe even tens of millions of euros, into construction of a small pipeline that was connected to our existing pipes. We booked this exit capacity from Slovakia for 5 years and for a couple of €100 million. This is why we hope Eastring is well rewarded for their work. By the way, again, we pay a tariff that is probably 5 times higher than the tariff we get from Gazprom. But at the same time, we're not saying that, again, there is something wrong with that. We want European companies and Eastern European companies to do proper business with us, and proper business means it should be profitable business. Second, for us, this issue is a matter of principle. We went to Maidan to fight the authoritarian regime of Yanukovych and his choice of Russia over Europe, because Europe for us is a priority of common values over interests of corrupt individuals. It is the rule of law, not rule of dirty money. As you know, we lost more than hundreds of our best citizens in this fight. Now we're losing thousands of our best sons who fight against Russian troops and Russia-backed terrorists in eastern Ukraine. Because we want to defend our choice. We do not want back to Russian Empire. I think that all Visegrad countries remember these times and they don't want to be back to these times as well. We need to stop it. Otherwise, they will conquer and destroy whole Ukraine. By the way, they will not stop in Ukraine on their march to restore Russian Empire. But back to Ukrainian-Slovakian interconnector. It's a very important test for us if a rule of law, European regulation, third energy package, energy community treaty are real rules of the game. If not, if one, even rather powerful, market participant can threaten or corrupt European Commission and national governments to an extent when they ignore their own regulation, then we, Ukraine, should realize that rules of the game are different from what we were inspired by. In practical terms, we need at least to adjust our plans to implement third energy package in Ukraine. Third, this new interconnector cannot solve all the practical problems. I mean, Voyana-Uzhgorod interconnector. It's not big enough, even after it will be increased to 15 BCM of annual capacity. Ukraine alone needs 50 BCM of west to east annual capacity. Just to remind, existing interconnector provides 100 BCM. Should we have this capacity available this summer, we would save around $800 million on gas purchases, because we have huge capacities of our underground gas storages, 30 BCM, and it is economically efficient for us to buy gas in summer rather than evenly throughout the year. But it will be a big mistake to think that this interconnector is important just to bring more gas from west to Ukraine. This interconnector is key to create a regional hub that would allow efficient use of Ukrainian gas transmission and storage system for the entire region, for the Visegrad group as well. As soon as we solve this issue, we remove existing bottlenecks between Hungarian, Polish, Romanian, Bulgarian, and Western markets. Everybody will be able to use backhaul to virtually bring enough gas from, for let's say, German markets, for example, to these Eastern European markets, or from Greek LNG terminals. That is why it's often called virtual reverse flows. One important detail: solving Ukrainian-Slovakian interconnector problem, make it in compliant with EU regulation, won't do any harm to legitimate interest of Gazprom. I want to stress legitimate interest of Gazprom. Its capacity bookings with Eastring won't be affected. Only if Gazprom interrupts physical flows to Europe via Slovakia entirely, then unused capacities could be used to physically transport gas from west to Ukraine and then, if needed, to Hungary, Poland, or Romania. Does it mean Gazprom will be also happy? Unfortunately, no. Gazprom will lose control over not just Ukrainian, but also Polish, Hungarian, Romanian, and Bulgarian markets. Not just that these countries will have an alternative supply in case of severe interruptions, and the latest stress test by the European Commission cry out about importance of interconnectors. Prices in this market will go down immediately. Immediately prices in Poland, Slovakia, Hungary will be not higher than prices in German hubs plus transportation to Ukraine. Soon after, as soon as we change the rules for the title transfer, that's the next step for us, prices in our countries will be lower than in Germany. It will be hub minus transport. That's why I don't understand why all of us, or at least many of us, are so confident that this friendship with Russia is helping their economy. In fact, this friendship kills your economy because you have competitive disadvantage, or kills our economy because we have competitive disadvantage if compared to, for example, German markets, where they have liquid markets and where they are not afraid of enforcing their own regulation to make their market compliant with the third energy package. The problem of the interconnector also makes it currently impossible for EU companies to use Ukrainian underground gas storage. That's because they cannot get in and out through this interconnector. Besides, it's also worth mentioning that solving this problem with the Ukrainian-Slovakian interconnector will dramatically change the discussion over the South Stream. Thomas. Currently, Russia's strategy is blatantly simple: divide and conquer. One can recall that Russians did not invent this strategy. It's an old and probably Roman strategy, Roman Empire strategy. They like this, you see, strategies of empires. As soon as it will be demonstrated to Russia that it cannot blackmail the whole market, that interconnectors will be regulated by the third energy package, that Europe is indeed serious to have a fully integrated energy market, Russia will refuse from this project. So just to conclude, again, it's an important test for everybody. And if we want to, again, to use the logic you used, basically, this prisoner dilemma, we have to get trust in each other. And if we show to Russia that, again, we are not afraid that our interests, economic interests of our nations will prevail over corrupt interests of certain individuals in Russia or elsewhere, again, we will win this battle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yuri. I have only one additional remark. Please take into consideration what we discussed in the welcome dinner on Sunday, the possibility, the option how to increase natural gas production from your Ukrainian resources. It's a big challenge for you. So thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Andreas Rau, CEO of Eastring, of Net4Gas, former Eastring, yes, from Net4Gas, transmission system operator of Czech Republic.
Dobrý den, thank you. Thank you, Jan. I have to admit that sometimes I'm getting confused myself, whether it's Eastring or Net4Gas. As an introduction, it's a great pleasure for me to be here today. I spent more than 8 years in Slovakia between 2005 and 2013. And when I came from Prague on Sunday night, it was a little bit like going home. So it was a good feeling. On the other hand, the topics which we are discussing today are so serious that I cannot afford to get sentimental. And I wanted to refrain from any political comments, to be honest, because we are not politicians, we are businessmen. But I have to make one political comment at the beginning. This prisoner's dilemma, it's an interesting philosophical concept. Trust is needed. I fully agree with you, Yuri. But trust is not only needed among the V4 countries, it's also, to my mind, needed very much, again, between Ukraine and Russia, and between the European Union and Russia. And I'm not sure whether all of the statements I've heard yesterday and also partly today are really helping to build this trust. In this respect, it's a little unfortunate, I have to say, that nobody from Gazprom is attending this conference and has an opportunity to defend their position. Now, Net4Gas, for those of you who are not so familiar with the business which we are operating, Net4Gas is the sole gas transmission system operator in the Czech Republic. We are transporting around about 40 to 45 billion cubic meters per year, out of which it's 80% for international transit purposes and round about 20% for domestic purposes for the supply of Czech customers. Unlike other TSOs in Europe, our advantage is that we have spare capacities at almost all relevant entry and exit points, and also that our transmission system is fully reversible. This helps us especially when it comes to security of supply issues. So the famous N-1 indicator for the Czech Republic is way above 1, it's rather 2 or 3. Not least thanks to the fact that in 2013 we commissioned the so-called Gazelle pipeline, which connects to the Opal system in Germany and to the Nord Stream corridor through the Baltic Sea. Now, Net4Gas and Eastring are similar companies. This does not come as a surprise. They used to be one company, so lots of similarities. There's one major difference probably. If we have a look at the contract portfolio, international gas transit, then the contract portfolio of Eustream is mostly east to west, whereas the contract portfolio of Net4Gas is rather north to south and west to east. And I will come back to this interesting aspect of west to east transport in a minute. The shareholders of Net4Gas are two financial investors, Allianz, the German insurance group on the one hand, and Borealis, a Canadian pension fund on the other hand, not to be confused with the Austrian chemicals group Borealis. It's a totally different company. Both of them are long-term investors. They call it buy and hold, so they have no intention to sell. So if I may answer Thomas' remark that Gazprom might be wishing to buy Net4Gas in order to close the loop, to close the circle, I can assure you that Allianz and Borealis, they have no intention at all to sell Net4Gas, not to Gazprom, and I have to say not to any other potential investor. They are quite happy with the investment and hopefully also with the management of Net4Gas. Both of them are quite experienced in infrastructure business, energy infrastructure business to be more specific. Allianz, they have a huge share in the Norwegian offshore gas transmission system operator Gaslet. And Borealis, they are owning one of the biggest gas distribution companies in the UK, Scotia Gas Networks, with a total pipeline length of 74,000 kilometers. So this is roughly Czech Republic plus Slovakia in terms of distribution pipeline system. In addition, another interesting aspect about Borealis, which is probably not so well known in Germany, they are the majority owner of the biggest nuclear power plant in the world. It's based in Ontario with an installed power of more than 6,000 megawatts. Now, let's have a look at international transit business. And if you're analyzing international transit business, then usually you start with an analysis of the supply-demand situation. If we can believe the projections made by the OECD and the International Energy Agency, gas demand will rather be stable in Europe in the next 10 to 20 years. We're at the level of 500 billion cubic meters per year, a little less in 2013 and 14 probably, but no big growth rates to be expected. Maybe the gas demand will even decrease. So this is not good news for our business, especially not for those companies who in the past heavily invested into huge infrastructure assets like Eustream and also Net4Gas. On the other hand, we can be pretty sure that indigenous gas production in Europe will sharply decrease over the next 2 or 3 decades. So this means that most probably post-2020, post-2025, probably there'll be a major supply gap in Europe which has to be filled somehow. Now, LNG is, of course, one of the options. Pipeline gas is another option, and if we like it or not, when talking about pipeline gas, Russian gas is probably the most competitive gas in Europe. This is leaving aside all the political considerations. From a purely business point of view, Russian gas should be rather competitive. So what are the export corridors for Russian gas today? Tomasz already described it in principle, so I will not spend a lot of time on this chart. The interesting aspect is that the total pipeline capacities for export of Russian gas into Europe, including Turkey, amount to round about 260 BCM per year right now. 260 BCM. Tomasz also mentioned the real export volume Russian gas into Europe, including Turkey, in 2013, which was around about 160 billion cubic meters per year. Now, even if we should be careful when comparing annual capacities and daily peak loads, this already illustrates that we have quite significant overcapacities today, around about 100 BCM today. This has led to a situation in which Gazprom has options to shift gas volumes here and there, and at Net4Gas we believe, from an economic point of view, Gazprom is currently shifting gas to Yamal and to Nord Stream to the largest extent possible, because for them this means the lowest marginal cost. Now that all those investments, for example, into Nord Stream have been made, you can in principle consider it as sunk cost, and this means marginal cost for each and every cubic meter of gas which you're transporting in addition are the lowest on the Polish route and on the route to through the Baltic Sea compared to Ukraine. So therefore, we've recently seen a complete shift in European flow patterns away from Ukraine to the northern corridors, and then in reverse flow, for example, through the Czech Republic, but also to Slovakia. And the next chart is to illustrate this trend a little more in detail. This is the Lanshot delivery point at the Czech-Slovak border. The blue line represents entry allocations since 2012, sharply decreasing trend, and the red line is for the exit allocation trend. So this means gas transmission in direction of Slovakia, sharply increasing trend, and the physical flow reversed in principle at the beginning of 2014, so that since then we've practically only seen physical flow in direction of Slovakia. And if you compare it with transit business in the last 20 years, this is a fundamental shift in the flow patterns in Europe. Now the situation as regards bookings, these are the underlying bookings for this reverse flow trend, is interesting. I would describe it in 3 steps, or let's say 4 steps. It all started in 2013 with a little bit of bookings on a daily or monthly basis, but the major first step then was taken or happened on 1st of January 2014, when Net4Gas had the first long-term reverse flow booking. And if you check our website today, long-term means until end of 2019. Capacities round about 40 million cubic meters per day booked on a long-term basis until end of 2019. And the second step, this is these are the peaks in spring, starting in spring 2014, when the Ukraine crisis really started to unfold. We had a lot of additional short-term bookings for reverse flow. Now it's always difficult for TSOs to assess what the underlying business case is. I assume that some of the big market players used reverse flow in order to fill their gas storages. And I also assume that one of the target markets for this was Italy. Last but not least, the third step happened when Eastring implemented physical reverse flow in direction of Ukraine in September this year. This is the peak you find on the right-hand side of the chart. There have been a lot of additional reverse flow bookings since then in the Czech Republic. Again, I suppose it's mainly for supplying gas to Ukraine. I cannot exclude, though, that partly it's also because in autumn we had an increasing spread between the German hubs and the Austrian hub, and maybe some shippers also made use of this spread in order to sell some gas at Baumgarten. But I suppose that the major part of all this gas is going to Ukraine. Now, whether this trend will continue or not largely depends, of course, on the geopolitical situation, and on the implementation of the winter package deal agreed on between Russia and Ukraine, and also, of course, what will happen beyond this winter gas deal. I suppose this in the end is not only a geopolitical question, but also a question of gas prices in the end. Now, let's have a short look at the stress test scenarios which the European Commission started to analyze in August this year. All member states were requested to provide their individual country reports. This is, in a nutshell, the result for the Czech Republic. In the first two scenarios, which assume a cut in transit through the Ukraine, there should not be any impact on the Czech Republic. As soon as it comes to more severe scenarios, like a complete cut in Russian supplies, either for 1 month or, in the most pessimistic scenario, for 6 months during the winter season, then it cannot be avoided anymore in the Czech Republic that certain customers have to be switched off. The good news, though, is that if everything runs properly, vulnerable customers would not have to be curtailed. That's the good news. And from the perspective of Net4Gas, another good news of this exercise is that the infrastructure capacities which we are providing, and also other infrastructure operators like storage operators are providing in the Czech Republic, are not a bottleneck. The bottleneck in such a situation would rather be access to commodity. That's the Czech situation. The European perspective is also quite interesting, and here I copied two of the scenarios which were analyzed at the European level. Again, it's the most severe cases, assuming a 6-month interruption of Russian gas supplies to Europe. And now it's two different scenarios. One scenario on the left-hand side, this is an optimum crisis management with full solidarity between the member states. And on the right-hand side, left-hand side, suboptimum. Not enough solidarity between the member states. Right-hand side, optimum crisis management with full solidarity between all member states. And if you compare the outcome of those two analyses, it's quite interesting to see that in an optimum crisis management, countries in southeastern Europe, they are profiting from solidarity, which is good. The negative impacts on southeastern Europe can be mitigated, just like for Estonia, for example. But the solidarity comes at a certain cost for those who declare themselves or who show solidarity for the others. And in this case, it's countries like Germany, but also Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Austria. Because in a crisis situation, here the assumption is that those countries would support the others, for example, through making available some of the storage capacities. So that's a very interesting concept. It's fully in line with the European spirit. I like it, but I have my doubts whether this will work in practice, especially having in mind that we do not have any mechanisms for this kind of solidarity at European level right now, and also having in mind that one of the basic features of a crisis is, during a crisis, you have no idea how long this crisis will last. So in such a situation, when would you start showing solidarity? Very difficult to answer this question. Compared to 2009, we are all much better off. That's again positive news, but there are still some bottlenecks in terms of interconnection capacities, some issues to be resolved, and at Net4Gas we are at least offering one project which should improve the situation for Central and Eastern Europe further. And this is the Polish-Czech interconnector project. The strategic rationale behind this project is twofold. First of all, we intend to establish the still missing north-south gas corridor in Europe, while giving access not only for the Czech Republic, but also for Slovakia and other countries further downstream in the south of Europe, for example, to the LNG terminal in Poland. And with the Hungarian-Slovak interconnector, which I really hope will start operations soon, we would have a good link already between Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. This is a huge step in the right direction. The second element, the second reason why we think it is a good project is market integration, and this is very much supported also by the European Commission. The idea of market integration means that you need certain pipeline connections for the markets to work as a single market. And no matter whether the pipeline capacities will be booked, whether there will be real flows in the end, the simple fact that you have the theoretical possibility to transport gas here and there should already have a positive impact on competition, and this should have a positive impact on the development of gas prices. So this is the idea behind this project. We are already quite advanced. And we also got the decisions of the Polish and the Czech regulator. Recently, positive decisions. We are still trying to clarify some details, but we're making good progress. We also applied for European funds. Unfortunately, in the first round, we most probably will not get anything. You probably know that most of the money will be allocated to the Baltic states. And this is simply because they are very, very vulnerable, probably the most vulnerable countries when it comes to a gas crisis. Therefore, I think the decision to allocate a lot of money to the Baltic states is fine. We will participate in the second call early next year, and I'm optimistic that then we'll get also funds, major funds for this project. The reason why we need funds for the Polish-Czech interconnector is simple, and I will explain it to you on the next 2 or 3 charts. First of all, the investment is massive. We're talking about 400 million euros in the Czech Republic and around about 500 million euros in Poland. Part of this investment would be needed anyhow to enhance capacities for the domestic market in the Czech Republic and also in Poland. So we are in principle combining domestic needs with international needs. That's the charming aspect of this project. But the investment is massive. And there's no business case. And this does not come as a surprise, because it's not like 10 years ago anymore, when the big vertically integrated undertakings had a very clear view on what kind of capacities they need. They would be willing to have long-term commitments on the transit side in order to finance the investments. This is all over. The rules of the game are completely different today. We made a market survey in 2012 and 2013, and we were not surprised to see that there's no willingness on the market side to have long-term commitments for such kind of pipeline. Therefore, different mechanisms have to be applied, and one concept which was again developed at European level by NSOC is a cost-benefit analysis. The idea of this is you analyze from a macroeconomic perspective what kind of impact such a project might have on the countries involved and also on the wider region. For our specific project, the cost-benefit analysis is very positive. So the cost, 400 plus 500 million euros, are much lower than the expected benefits in the long run. For example, resulting from a fuel switch, coal to gas, reduced CO2 emissions, for example, because of avoided supply disruptions, or because of the jobs which are created during the construction of such a project. So that's fine from the macroeconomic perspective. From the perspective of a business entity like Net4Gas, it's more complicated because we need to make sure that the investment is really remunerated over the next 20, 30, 40 years. And here we are currently in discussions with the Czech regulator, also with the European Commission. We as a TSO, we are willing to take the implementation risk and the ownership and operational risk for such a pipeline, but under the given circumstances, a TSO cannot take the commercial risk. If there's no market demand, but there's a political will because of security of supply, because of market integration to implement such a project, you need to find other mechanisms to finance it. That's one of the reasons why we think European funds are urgently needed for such kinds of projects. And this already leads me to my conclusions. There are a lot of uncertainties for gas transmission system operators. We do not have a clear view on what role natural gas, and more specifically Russian gas, will play in the future energy mix of Europe. We know that the big projects today are not market-driven anymore. They are rather triggered by the political aim to have market integration and to enhance security of supply. So therefore, my main message would be for new projects, but also to ensure fair remuneration for existing assets, including the assets which Eastring is operating. We have to find new tools, new mechanisms. We, in principle, need a complete regulatory shift at European level, which takes into account that those assets are to the benefit not only of the Czech Republic or Slovakia, but to the benefit of the whole of Europe. And this has to be taken into account also when talking about cost allocation. That's my final conclusion. Spontaneously, I added one more chart yesterday, and the reason for this is we've discussed a lot about the situation in Ukraine, Russian gas supplies to Europe. We have, to my mind, neglected one very important aspect, though, and this is the aspect of what does this all mean for the image, for the reputation of natural gas in Europe. My conclusion is it's catastrophic. It was already catastrophic in 2009, during and after the first gas crisis, but it has even become worse now. And we have to work, the gas industry has to work again on improving the image of natural gas as a safe and secure fuel, as a complementary fuel for renewables. My very concrete proposal would be that the Czech Gas Association and the Slovak Gas Association team up and develop a concept for how to promote, again, natural gas as a complementary fuel for renewables. Maybe even in the V4 context. This would be my vision. And I found an interesting statement made by the German Minister of Environment roughly 1 month ago, which I find very encouraging, and I will simply read it out to you. Barbara Hendricks, German Minister of Environment, not Economy, Environment, said in October, natural gas contributes to the diversification of energy supplies and thus also to enhancing competition between different fuels. It can be flexibly used and therefore is a good partner for renewables. For example, by blending natural gas with biogas or synthetic methane produced from renewable surplus electricity. Due to the aforementioned advantages, the competitiveness of gas-fired power plants can significantly contribute to achieving the climate targets. On the other hand, coal is currently unrivaled in its affordability. Thus, efficient gas-fired power plants cannot be operated economically, resulting in a negative climate impact. Therefore, the German government is working on 3 reform programs: a reform of the European Emissions Trading Scheme, the 2020 Climate Protection Program, and a reform of the electricity market in order to define new rules for the combination of fossil fuels and renewables. These reforms will strengthen the market position of gas-fired power plants. I think this is the direction in which the gas industry should be heading to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andreas, for your presentation. I remember that at that time when Andreas was chairman of the board in Eastring, I was regulator in Slovakia. And I highly appreciate our mutual collaboration. There were everywhere hard discussion, but Andreas was able to accept also a regulatory point of view, and it was really noteworthy. Now you are in completely other situation in Czech Republic, I think. But the last lecturer in this panel will be Adam Marzecki from Gas System, Transmission System Operator in Poland.
Hopefully it's working. Okay. So I hope that you are not tired after these very interesting presentations. I hope to give you some guidance about the Polish market and how we are contributing to the goal of creating the CE market. I believe that we have some successes already, and we are cooperating together with Net4Gas and Eastring, or Eastring and Net4Gas in regards to the creation of the new capacities on our southern border. So I hope to give you some more details about this and the future. Okay, so for those who don't know gas system, we are the transmission system operator, the certified one, and we are owned by State Treasury of Poland, 100%. So how to say, we are more or less controlled by the Polish government. We are fully unbundled TSO. That means we are not dependent on any company or any company which is dealing with gas contracts, gas supply contracts. We are just operating the system, and we are providing the third-party access to our pipelines to every party which is interested in transmission of the gas in Poland. We are also the independent system operator on the Yamal pipeline, which is the pipe which was also mentioned by Mr. Mareczek, the one of the three pipes supplying the Russian gas towards the Western countries. And we are also the owner of the SPV company called Polski LNG, the special purpose vehicle responsible for the construction of LNG terminal in Świnoujście, so the very first LNG terminal in Poland. Actually, a few weeks ago, Lithuanians just commissioned their terminal in Klaipėda. We were, let's just say, we are almost sure that we will be the first one, but the difference between those two terminals is that the Lithuanian terminal, it's not the, how to say, fixed terminal, it's just a leasing agreement. It's the leased asset from the Norwegian company called Hug. And the difference between those terminals is that Lithuanian terminal is just a vessel, which is, how to say, parked in the Klaipėda and for 10 years. So this is probably the main difference between those two assets. And we are operating the transmission system in total almost 11,000 of pipelines, but this number will increase and increase in the next year. So that's pretty much it. How we are supplied? We used to be supplied mainly from the eastern direction. So this is shown in this picture. So I believe that this is the similar. It used to be similar picture for all of the V4 countries. Also for the Baltic states, which you can see on the north site on top of this slide. And the main difference between this market these markets, because for the moment we cannot say that actually CEE region creates the one market, and versus the northwestern countries, is that we used to be supplied only from the east to west pipelines, and in the last few years we, together with the colleagues from Slovakia, from Czech Republic, from Hungary, and other countries, we enabled also the possibility of transmission of the gas through the for the west towards the east direction. And in total, those markets are, together with Baltic states, are at the level of 48. If we'll add to this 50 BCM of Ukrainian market, then we'll have the picture of 100 BCM market, which probably it means that it is a significant market, especially for the external suppliers, because for the moment we used to be supplied only in the vast majority from Russia, from the eastern direction. But if this market will someday become the complete and integrated market, then it may be also interesting for the external suppliers through the other directions. And this situation, if you will take a look on the right bottom of this slide, you will see that the prices are always tricky part of all of the presentations, of all assumptions, that we cannot actually find the one good source of this information. So what are the real prices on the borders of from the import contracts, because they are of course classified. This is classified information. But what we can rely on, and probably this is the information that majority of also the journalists are using, is the Izviestia publication concerning the long-term gas prices in 2012. So you can see on the top of this the actual price for the Germany and the prices for the V4 countries, and you can see that the prices are different, and unfortunately V4 countries are paying more than the German market. This is not a big surprise. Probably all of us know that fact, but we believe that once we will complete to implement our projects and also the concept of North-South corridor, this will drop significantly. So the system in 2009, our system in 2009 was, let's just say, the system which was only designed for the transportation from the east to the west. And actually we had only one point in Lasov, in the arrow green, which was able to provide the capacity from the Germany towards Poland with the not really significant 1 BCM per annum. And we experienced disruptions and shortages in gas supplies in 2005, in 2006, and 2009. And actually that was probably the starting, or the starting point of our consideration concerning the changing of this picture, and in order to address the market integration, in order to increase the security of supply of Poland and also for the whole region. You all know the concept of the North-South gas corridor, but I will talk about this on the next slide. But on this slide I would like to just mention that the problems in the CEE regions are also well known from the Brussels perspective. It seems that Brussels knows about it, and it's providing some possibilities for us to finance the needed infrastructure, which will help to integrate also this market and the market of Baltic states. On On the 14th of October 2013, the Commission published the list of the PCI projects. So that means the projects of common interest, and vast majority of the projects from the Baltic states and also from the CE region are on this list. That means that they can apply for the financial aid from the EU, and also they can obtain the special status which will help to implement those projects. North-South gas corridor, for the moment, the picture looks like this, and but what is worth to mention is that the North-South gas corridor projects brings new capacities, new pipelines from the north to south direction, but it will also bring some new supplies from the other sources. That it's not just the integration of the countries which doesn't have actually the large domestic production. We need to ask some external suppliers to provide also the gas from the other sources. And it seems that you can see it on the slide that the LNG in Klaipėda in Lithuania and LNG in Poland will be the first new sources also for this region. So unfortunately, the Lithuania is not connected to anyhow to European system. But probably that means probably that LNG terminal in Świnoujście will be the first new source of the gas starting from 2015. So what we've done in the last 10 years? So it's a decade of gas system right now. So we were established in 2004, and so it's our 10th anniversary. So it's worth to mention what we made during this 10 years. So by the beginning of next year, that means first quarter or maximum second quarter of 2015, we'll complete the infrastructure scenario marked in orange. As a result of this, we enabled the first connection on the south with Czech Republic in Cieszyn. We also enhanced the connection with Germany in Lasov with Ontras. Probably the most significant project on this is the establishment of the reverse flow on Yamal pipeline in Malnov. And why this project is so important? It's because that establishing of this reverse flow on the Yamal pipeline is the very first actually reverse flow on the pipeline from which was designed mainly from Russia for supplying Russian gas towards the Western countries, and this point provides the possibility to import to Poland by the reverse flow capacity of 5.5 BCM. That means it's a really significant capacity. If you will compare Poland with the annual consumption approximately at the level of 16, this means that this capacity is really almost 1/3 of the consumption. LNG terminal was already mentioned, and in Poland, the problem is that in Poland we don't need to just to create the interconnections, because it will be pretty much easy. But we need to also construct some internal pipelines, because the system is hugely bottlenecked. That means in order to be able to get the gas from the LNG terminal in Świnoujście, we were forced to construct also some internal pipelines in order to be able to deliver this gas to the other regions of the Poland. We believe that implementation of North-South gas corridor will be possible from the Polish perspective until 2019. So you can see it on this slide that we believe that by this perspective we'll be able to complete Polish and Czech interconnector number 2 in Hat, and also Polish and Slovakia interconnector. Also project which will link Polish transmission system with the Baltic states. It is called the project Polish-Lithuania. I will maybe just take a few sentences about the Polish and Lithuania projects, as you can see it on this slide, the project is really long in Poland. We don't have a transmission system in this part of the Poland, and that means that we need to construct the pipeline, which is 350 kilometers long. In Poland only. In Lithuania, it does require approximately 120 kilometers. And I'm not sure how many of you know the market in Baltic states, but the market is really, really limited. So in total, market of Baltic states is at the level of 4.5. So construction of this pipeline, it's really challenging if you want to find the business case, because it does require extensive capex, and the market is not really well developed in order to support the decision of implementation of this project. So that's why this project, it does require a lot of EU contribution in order to create a feed for the final investment decision for these projects. And what is really important for information on this slide, that probably those of you which are attending to the conferences like this heard a lot of investment projects, and especially those huge investment projects. South Stream was mentioned, and we are just getting more and more knowledge about these projects, and it seems that implementation of this big project is always really complicated, so the deadlines and the time schedules are always postponed for this. But in the case of this project, you can see that the difference is that all of these projects are approved by NRA. That means that they are ready to be financed through the regulated tariff of gas system also, but also with the help of European Union. So that means that it's not in this way that we are just thinking to implement all of these projects, which are really extensive, but they are also approved by the Polish NRA. That means they will be implemented in the future. So it's just a question of time. LNG terminal in Poland. Everybody's asking the question why it is not completed yet, because it's supposed to be completed by 2014. Unfortunately, we experienced some problems, mainly with the construction companies. I will not go into details about it, but the construction companies were not really that strong, financially strong, in order to carry that kind of investment. And because of the financial crisis and because of the market situations, they had some problems with completion of their contracts. So the terminal is postponed, but current status is it is advanced in the 94%. So the terminal will be commenced first quarter to second quarter next year, when the first vessels with the LNG will come to Poland. And what is important to say is that, I'm not sure, yeah, it's probably really small on your screen. If you will take a look on the picture on the highest corner of the slide, you will see that there are two storage tanks located currently on the terminal, but there is a place for the third storage tank. That means that terminal can be enhanced, can be developed more. So the capacity of this terminal could reach, regasification capacity of this terminal could reach 7.5 BCM, which is also a significant number. Okay. Besides the completion of the infrastructure and our projects, we are also focused on the market development, but from this regulatory perspective. So we are also contributing to the implementation of EU network codes. So probably in terms of the most important currently code is network code. We implemented all of the provisions of the network code already. So we are providing the third-party access to YAML pipeline. This was a huge revolution. I will show you on the next slide. In Poland, recently we also introduced the natural gas exchange in Poland. So this is also the way how the new companies can enter to the market. We are also implementing the gas release program. That means that the company which was dominating on the market, the PGNiG, so the dominant player on Polish market, is selling parts of its portfolio through the natural gas exchange in order to enhance the competition on the market. So this is the concept which was also implemented in Germany, in Denmark in the past years. So we are conducting the similar actions. We also conducted some pilot projects concerning the bundled capacity. The bundled capacity is the interesting concept concerning the allocating of the cross-border capacity at once in two countries. Of course, we are cooperating with under the V4 umbrella concerning the finding the right gas target model for this region. So this is really interesting discussion, and this discussion will be continued in the next years. And also we also launched the capacity auctioning platform in gas system. So this is actually the second project out of 3 in total in EU. This is let's just say eBay for the capacity, and the companies can allocate according to the CAM network how the capacities must sell the capacities on the auctioning platform, which will guarantee the non-biased character and non-discriminatory character, and so the parties interested in acquiring of the capacity, they have the tool for that. So this is the concept which is obligatory for all transmission network transmission operators starting from the November 2015. So this is really important. Connecting Europe facility. This is probably the most important discussion which we have right now. I will continue in short with Net4Gas and with Eastring. So we applied for the EU financial support for our 2 projects, Polish and Czech connection and Polish and Slovakia connection. On 21st of November 2014, we received the information that those projects acquired some financial assistance, but not at this level that we asked for that. So we just received the possibility to obtain the financing for the preparation studies for this project, not for the whole completion of those projects. This will result in a situation that we will apply again, probably in the next call for proposals under this program, which is scheduled for the beginning of, which will be scheduled beginning of next year. Interesting slide. Maybe I will just finish my presentation on this. Is that because of our actions in last decade, we developed the competition on Polish market. So in 2004, when we were established, there was only one company in Poland which was selling the gas and all, PGNiG, and we had the transmission contract with this company. In 2009, when we conducted the open season and we for the Polish and Czech connection, 3 companies were our clients in gas system. In 2014, we have 75 entities, it means 75 clients and 99 transmission contracts. So it means that this infrastructure and this regulatory development brings the competition and actually brings some. It's the answer for the integration. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, just ask. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation, Adam. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is over, but despite the fact that everything was said, I think minimal one question from audience. Okay. What's happened? Mr. Badida is not here? Is Dušan Filip.
Dobrý deň, Filip Urbán z Asociácie pre využitie obnoviteľných a alternatívnych zdrojov. Ja by som mal jednu otázku aj na...
Počkajte chvíľku, kým si nasadia slúchatka.
Dobrý deň, ja by som mal jednu otázku. Som z Asociácie pre využitie obnoviteľných a alternatívnych zdrojov. Ja by som sa chcel spýtať na váš súkromný názor, možno aj firemný názor, ako si viete predstaviť prepravu biometánu v vašich systémoch z Ukrajiny smerom na Slovensko alebo do Európskej únie, lebo Ukrajina môže napríklad produkovať a modernizovať svoj agrosektor formou biometánu. A to je ďalšia komodita, s ktorou je alternatíva voči ruskému plynu. To by som sa chcel spýtať aj pre Eustream, ako pre aj Net4Gas a tak ďalej, aj Poliakov.
So I agree that Ukraine has huge potential for biomass. That's the reason Yuri starts.
Okay. Frankly speaking, we have some other urgent priorities at the moment, but if we look at a more like mid-term perspective, of course it seems like a promising option, and there are no barriers from a strategic point of view to develop this option. Again, it's not like I'm focused on this particular issue of interconnector, but as soon as we, for example, can use 4 major pipelines for reverse flows and forward flows of gas, it's more than enough capacity. And then this new pipeline, Vayane-Uzhgorod, maybe can be converted or somehow used for, again, transportation of YMSN. But in general, again, it's, of course, a much more complicated technical issue, so I'm not saying that tomorrow it can be used for that. But in general, I think that it's something that we should look at and develop.
Thanks, Andreas.
Very short answer. Of course, technically it's possible to a certain extent. Commercially, it's not always viable. This has to be analyzed then on a case-by-case basis. The most expensive part might be feeding biogas then into the transmission system. So usually you need small compressor units to feed it into the system. There are a couple of good examples in Germany. It's working in Germany on a small scale basis, but it's working. And I think we should take a close look at those examples in Germany and then try to find out how this can be also used in other countries, including Czech Republic, by the way.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you. I think you already probably know that in Ustream we are creative and flexible. So yes, we can transport it, as well as we can transport it air, and sometimes in the future we can transport, of course, CO2. Maybe back to Ukraine, Yuri. I think the technical question will probably be that the sources will not be directly connected to the Ustream's pipeline. If you are connected somewhere in Slovakia to distribution system with 3 megapascals of pressure, and we are running the pipes at 70 or 73 bars, and distribution has no compressors, I'm wondering how would you manage to push the water up the hill. So technically we can, but I think it's the question for the future. Thanks.
Adam, could you something add to this issue?
Yeah, I do agree with Mr. Mareczek, so this is probably the most important challenge to be met. We have also some experience with biogas. We are just testing, analyzing the possibilities and also the experience of the German colleagues, because you can see some examples in Germany and also in Denmark. But for the moment, we are not implementing those kind of projects in real life. It's more or less research and development and question of the future.
Thank you. Next question. Please.
Christian Takas from RWE. Thomas, I understand you have had some exchange of view with Hungarians, as you stated in the beginning yesterday. I'm wondering only, have you had similar exchange of views with Austrians, who kind of nobody speaks about, but I guess they're in the same game? And the second question I have, it's more related to Ukrainian colleague. Sorry. Okay. So, what is your position, or have you had exchange of view with the Austrians regarding the similar exchange of view as you had yesterday with the Hungarians? That was the first question, and the second question is to the Ukrainian colleague. You stated that the current contractual relations between Eastring and Gazprom on the Ukrainian and Slovak border is not in line with the third energy package. Could you please once again maybe specify, because I didn't get all the details. Thank you. The question was, you had an exchange of view yesterday with the Hungarian colleague regarding some issues, as you stated at the beginning of your speech, and I'm wondering if you have had some discussions with the Austrian colleagues as well on a similar topic.
Not yet. Actually, we have a meeting scheduled with Gasconnect Austria for next week, but we have multiple issues to discuss, and I think Gasconnect Austria, these are technical guys, these are professionals, and this is not their decision. Actually, the entity which will theoretically bring South Stream to Baumgarten is South Stream Austria, which is of course connected to OMV Group, but this is not, even if it is the same shareholder for South Stream Austria and Gasconnect Austria, we will have discussions only on the professional level on lots of technical issues we have to resolve with our Austrian partners. But I think Austria, I don't see there is any problem in Austria actually. I think the major problem you were referring to during our yesterday's discussion with Hungarian colleagues is that Hungary do not respect European law at all. They are deliberately delaying Slovak-Hungarian interconnector. On Slovakian side, it was ready like a year ago. They stopped the reverse to Ukraine, but because we have, I think, the best people in this segment, we reviewed the technical details of the interconnection between Hungary and Ukraine, and we know that it can be restarted tomorrow. There is no technical problem, no technical issue. That's just political decision. And third, think that Hungarians do try to evade somehow the European regulation legislation by passing some funny laws in order to enable construction of the South Stream. So that was the topic of yesterday's discussion, that this has nothing to do with European law and the regional solidarity. So that was my problem. And when the discussions with Austrian colleagues, I don't see any such problem at this time.
Thanks, Yuri.
Yeah, answering your question, and maybe Thomas will add something. We would like to hear from him how it violates the European regulation. But our understanding is the following. So Gazprom is a matching partner for Eastring at the Ukrainian-Slovakian interconnector. Can you imagine something like that, for example, between Slovakia and the Czech Republic? And because they're a matching partner, it's them who decide who can use these 4 existing pipelines between Ukraine and Slovakia, either for gas flows from east to west or from west to east. Basically, they just block anybody else. We're not talking about equal or third-party access, just there is no other party access than for Gazprom. So again, there is some heritage to this contract, but still, as a matter of fact, again, Gazprom, being not a TSO between Ukraine and Slovakia, performs functions of some virtual TSO between Ukraine and Slovakia. And of course, it clearly violates third energy package. It clearly violates anti-monopoly regulation and any possible, basically, laws that would be needed for a fair market here in Slovakia, in Ukraine, in Europe, everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Although the 10 minutes are over, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Thank you for your patience. On behalf of audience, I would like to render my thanks to all of lecturers today. And now I would like to invite to the microphone Mr. Lubomír Kuchta. He is substitute of General Director Jan Petrovic, who is abroad today. Mr. Kuchta has prepared conclusion and recommendation of Central European Energy Congress. Lubomír, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As was said, that I am going to replace for today Mr. Jan Petrovic, who is my Director General and is on the business trip. And for this reason, I will try to present the conclusions. Conclusions I have prepared in Slovak. For this reason, now I will switch to Slovak language. Vážení účastníci konferencie, vážené dámy, vážení páni. Rokovanie 8. ročníka Stredoeurópskej energetickej konferencie, ktorá bola zameraná na tému Spoločná energetická politika Európskej únie a energetická bezpečnosť Strednej Európy, dospelo ku svojmu záveru. Konala sa pod záštitou ministra hospodárstva pána Pavlisa a bola zameraná nielen na hodnotenie výsledkov regionálnej spolupráce krajín V4, ale aj na jej ďalšie vyhliadky a perspektívu. Nedeľný večer a obidva rokovacie dni priniesli veľké množstvo nových podnetov a myšlienok, ktoré významne prispievajú k diskuziám o dôležitosti a význame energetiky nielen v centrálnej Európe, ale aj v Európskej únii, aj vo svete. V prvom paneli sme si so záujmom vypočuli vystúpenia ministrov zodpovedných za energetiku v krajinách Vyšehradskej skupiny. Hlavnými témami boli závery októbrového rokovania Európskej rady venované rámcu klimatickej a energetickej politiky EÚ na obdobie medzi rokmi 2020 až 2030 a otázky energetickej bezpečnosti. Ministri sa zhodli, že nové ciele klimatickej a energetickej politiky pre rok 2030 sú ambiciózne, ale dosiahnuteľné. Dôležitým predpokladom pre realizáciu cieľov bude stabilné investičné a regulačné prostredie. Pri definovaní konkrétnych opatrení bude nevyhnutné zohľadniť vplyvy na konkurencieschopnosť priemyslu a ceny energie. V otázkach energetickej bezpečnosti diskusia ministrov potvrdila, že región V4 je na prípadné prerušenie dodávok zemného plynu pripravený lepšie ako v krízovom roku 2009. Aj tu je však priestor na ďalšie zlepšenie, najmä z hľadiska pretrvávajúcich rizík v príprave dlhodobejších výpadkov dodávok plynu, a to v oblasti dobudovania infraštruktúry a užšej medzinárodnej spolupráce. Počas pracovného obeda diskutovali ministri aj s výkonnou riaditeľkou Medzinárodnej energetickej agentúry pani Mariou van der Hoeven o dlhodobých globálnych perspektívach energetického sektora v súvislosti s publikáciou Svetový energetický výhľad 2014. Tento výhľad bol predmetom aj druhého panelu konferencie a prehľad sa popri komplexnej analýze globálnych energetických trendov a vývoji na energetických trhoch v jednotlivých komoditách zameriava na hodnotenie ich vplyvov na energetickú bezpečnosť, ekonomiku a životné prostredie. Prehľad prináša hĺbkovú analýzu troch aktuálnych tém energetiky, ktoré sú obsahom špeciálnych kapitol. Jedným z nich je aj hĺbkové zameranie na jadrovú energetiku a zvýšenie inštalovaného výkonu. Scenáre ukazujú, že svetový dopyt po energiách bude naďalej stúpať, aj keď v Európskej únii bude tento trend opačný. V kontexte EÚ a V4 je problém s umelo nastavenými cenami energií, kde sa finančne dotujú obnoviteľné zdroje energie. Prezentovaný výhľad bol podporený aj zo strany Európskej komisie so zvýraznením energeticko-klimatického rámca a komentovaný aj zo strany ďalších panelistov, pričom boli spomenuté problémy aj rafinérskeho priemyslu. Tretí panel bol venovaný jadrovej energetike, nielen v centrálnej Európe, ale aj v celej Európskej únii. Situácia je nesúrodá, lebo niektoré krajiny sa stavajú proti jej využívaniu a iné vrátane krajín V4 podporujú a obhajujú. Tu prevláda zhoda, že jadrová energia je nielen bezpečná, ale aj finančne zvládnutelná. Navyše je v súlade s ambíciami EÚ, ako znížiť emisné plyny v dlhodobom horizonte. V paneli bola spomenutá skutočnosť, že maďarská a slovenská energetika majú z hľadiska svojej súčasnej štruktúry komplementárny potenciál a synergia oboch hlavných hráčov v tejto oblasti je v budúcnosti možná. V príspevku zástupcu komisie sme mali možnosť oboznámiť sa s aktuálnymi návrhmi ESA, to je Energy Supply Agency, súvisiacimi s požiadavkami na diverzifikáciu dodávateľov jadrového paliva pre jadrové elektrárne. V tejto oblasti existuje značný diverzifikačný potenciál, hlavne pre elektrárne ruského typu a komisia teda prezentovala, že v budúcnosti nebude súhlasiť s prevádzkou nových jadrových elektrární, u ktorých nebude zabezpečený aj alternatívny dodávateľ paliva. V príspevku zástupcu slovenských elektrární sme mali možnosť vypočuť si aktuálne informácie o situácii na trhu s elektrinou z pohľadu dominantného hráča v Slovenskej republike. Situácia v oblasti cenového výhľadu bola charakterizovaná ako málo predvídateľná, nežičiaca dlhodobým investíciám do energetiky, čo môže viesť masívnemu zatváraniu elektrární na fosílne palivá v blízkej budúcnosti bez možnosti inej, ich rýchlej a adekvátnej náhrady v oblasti silovej energetiky. Sumárne je možné uviesť, že jadrová energetika je považovaná všetkými panelistami za dôležitý technologický zdroj, ktorý má významný potenciál prispieť ku všetkým energetickým cieľom v EÚ, avšak v súčasnosti čelí dôležitým výzvám, ktoré sú spojené hlavne s otázkou jej financovania. Štvrtý panel, ktorý bol vlastne dneska prvým, vychádza z cieľov klimaticko-energetického rámca na obdobie rokov 2020 až 2030. Venoval sa zvyšovaniu podielu obnoviteľných zdrojov na výrobe elektríny a najmä zvyšovaniu energetických úspor a väčšiemu uplatňovaniu energetickej efektívnosti. Bol spomenutý legislatívny rámec, ciele možnosti, aké máme aj v Slovenskej republike a akým spôsobom sa naplňajú akčné plány. Veľmi zaujímavé bolo porovnanie skúseností, ktoré majú EÚ a krajiny V4 s plnením doterajších cieľov a výhľad hľadania ciest pre naplnenie ambicióznych cieľov do roku 2030, ako aj norské skúsenosti s využívaním carbon capture and storage. Posledný, 5. panel máme ešte v živej pamäti. Ten bol venovaný trhu s plynom v krajinách V4. Zameral sa na poučenie z krízy v roku 2009, na zvyšovanie nezávislosti, budovanie infraštruktúry, možnosti posilňovania nezávislosti Ukrajiny od Ruska. Tento trh charakterizujú veľmi podobné problémy, ktoré sú najmä dominovanie ruských dodávok, znižovanie dopytu po zemnom plyne, limitovaná infraštruktúra, chýbajúce prepojenie sever-juh a podobne. Limitovaná, aj keď rastúca vnútorná konkurencia má za následok problémy likvidity na trhu, boli spomenuté určité námety na diskuziu, ako napríklad potreba reorganizácie vstupných a výstupných zón, zjednodušenie cezhraničnej dopravy bez preťaženia, trhové a harmonizované denné režimy, prevádzkové, komunikačné a obchodné pravidlá, správne údaje a tarifné metodiky, ktoré zabránia diskriminačnému stanovovaniu cien medzi užívateľmi siete cez cezhraničné a domáce produkty. Veľmi zaujímavou témou bolo porovnanie trás ropovodov z hľadiska prínosu bezpečnosti dodávok a spoločné ciele na zabezpečenie bezpečnosti dodávok plynu. Bude dôležité, akým smerom sa budú uberať aktivity aj u našich susedov a aké riešenia sa príjmu aj z pohľadu platnej legislatívy Európskej únii, myslím tým dodržiavanie 3. liberalizačného balíčka. Chcel by som samozrejme poďakovať aj ostatným panelistom, ktorí nám poskytli zaujímavé údaje o dodávkach a tranzite plynov Českej republiky, Poľska a predniesli taktiež aj určité námety na ďalšiu spoluprácu. Vážené dámy, vážení páni, dovolte mi na záver poďakovať sa vám všetkým za účasť a aktívny prístup v diskuziách, čím ste prispeli k úspešnému priebehu tohto v poradí už 8. ročníka Stredoeurópskej energetickej konferencie. Pevne verím, že táto platforma nám poskytuje nielen množstvo podnetných myšlienok a riešení, ale zároveň nachádzame nové oblasti, ktoré je potrebné diskutovať v rámci odborných dialógov. Želám vám, aby ste nadobudnuté informácie a podnetné myšlienky využili v každodennej práci. Želám vám šťastnú cestu a úspešný návrat do vašich domovov a k vašim rodinám. Ďakujem za pozornosť.
Ďakujem pekne, Ľubomír. Len malú pripomienku. V 5. paneli sme neporovnávali trasy ropovodov, ale plynovodov. No. And now the floor for the main organizer, the director of Research Center of the Slovak Foreign Policy Association, Mr. Alexander Duleba, for final speech.
It will be not a speech. Thank you, Jan, for giving me this floor. I'm going to have just 3 brief comments. The first one, I'm very happy man. First, because of Mr. Kuchta already summarized the conference proceedings. Second, I'm very happy because the conference is at the end, and actually a couple of hours of my life will be much more easy for me. And this is the first comment. The second comment, and here I would like to use, I was looking for a sort of a common denominator for the conference proceeding, and Mr. Mareček helped me very much by putting, on this, the conference debate, the Nash equilibrium. This formula, or this theory about the Nash equilibrium can be well applied on the definition of the regional cooperation. And the conference proceeding seems to me, this Nash equilibrium works when it comes to the intergovernmental cooperation in a part of the energy agenda. Nash equilibrium worked between SFP and Ministry of Economy when we agreed that it would be good idea to combine both the planned ministerial meeting we did in the Visegrad for presidency and also this Central European conference as the established Central European Energy Forum. So, this was really like win-win situation, and thank you very much. And my thanks go to Minister Pavlis and Mr. Petrovic and his team at the Ministry of Economy for working together. And it was added asset for the conference to have energy ministers. Also, it was, I do hope so that you also share it with me. That it was asset for the ministerial to have this sort of background from the region. I'm very happy, and it was really, and I think it is, I would say, unique sort of achievement. We managed to have executive director of the International Energy Agency with us at the conference, because personally she reports about the world energy outlook in a couple of places like Washington, D.C., London, Paris, Brussels, and so we put the Bratislava and this conference on the map of these VIP presentations when the world energy outlook is presented in person by the chief of the International Energy Agency. So I think this was also a very important asset. When it comes to the political format of the discussion, and I'm very much appreciated finally. So we have our Ukrainian partners with us. It was on a gas issues because it's really maybe the most urgent issue right now. But I do much hope that it also will become a sort of tradition, because we have to speak not only about the gas cooperation of the gas sector, but also energy issue. Energy efficiency issues, and there's a lot of common topics between V4 and Ukraine, and not only Ukraine. What I think is also very important, Romania is a very important country. This year we didn't include the topic of the the creation of the regional market in electricity, and it is quite success story because we have this market complete process started by Czech Republic, Slovakia, then Hungary joined, and now Romania recently joined the project. And it looks like that there is some overlapping with some or potential development of the regional market, and Romania is definitely important country that should be taken on the board. So we will think about in the future. Nash equilibrium. And coordination, because Nash equilibrium is about the coordination. And it looks like that within the V4 and this regional context, so we can work together when it comes to lobby some sort of our joint positions vis-a-vis the EU and the EU institutions. And we have good example when it comes to to getting a sort of support for developing gas infrastructure in the region. It's very important. But what I see and what this conference proceedings, over those 2 days showed us that we are just, and the V4 cooperation will be challenged by the need in production sort of coordination. Because it's not, I liked very much, points raised by Mr. Senkovic when he was commenting the World Energy Outlook, saying that, look, the market with all products in region is narrowing, and there are too many players, still in the game. And sooner or later, this is the problem, or, we can expect the sort of the competition on the market because market is simply narrowing and there are too many players still in the game. Then if you look at the electricity production, if all our countries will, install all this nuclear capacity they planned, one should not be an expert on sort of electricity market to understand that it's like sort of overcapacity which we plan, and there's no market for that. So again, the question raises about this Nash equilibrium and coordination. So when my sort of ambition or challenge I see before us, ahead of us, is to have this sort of debate that would facilitate or improve this coordination efforts of the V4 countries, so in a long-term perspective that we can plan together even, sort of the projection of our markets. It goes not only with the gas, but also electricity, oil products, etc., etc. So this is why this Nash equilibrium was very helpful for me, to summarize sort of the key points of this debate. Finally, I'm very happy, and what was also new with this conference, if I compare it with the previous annual conferences, is that we managed to include new actors. The Union of Towns of Cities of Slovakia, and Association of Energy Cities, including this Covenant of Mayors initiative, which is something new. So it was not present during the previous years, and I found it very important to involve more and more actors, including in this issue and debate about the energy efficiency. So this is very briefly, these are my just impressions about this conference debate. Let me express my thanks to all panelists, chairs of the panels, all of you for accepting our invitation and joining us for the conference. Again, my special thanks go to the Ministry of Economy, representation of the European Commission in Slovakia, Slovak Gas and Oil Association, Jan Klepač, Karel Hirman, and others who helped me in preparing this conference. And to all our institutional partners, corporate partners, and media partners. Actually, so following yesterday's debate, there's quite interesting response by Slovak media, not only Slovak media, we had Reuters with us, and actually international media. Now, and this conference, so has been having a voice in this debate. Okay, thank you very much, and let me wish you all the best, and really I do much hope that we will meet in 1 year again at the 9th Annual Central European Energy Conference. Thank you very much. And finally, let me invite you for the lunch, which will be served in the wardrobe room. Thank you.